So today, we're going to tackle a huge question, one that could really define our future. Is artificial intelligence about to end work as we know it? Look, we've all seen new tech come and go, right? But this time, the revolution isn't about replacing our muscles. It's about replacing our minds.
All right, let's just dive right in with a comparison you hear all the time. People say, don't worry about AI. Look at computers. Look at ATMs. They changed jobs, sure, but they didn't get rid of them. But the whole argument we're exploring today is that lumping AI into that same category is a huge mistake. This is not just another tool. And yeah, this is the story we all know, right? The classic example is the ATM. Everyone predicted mass unemployment for bank tellers. But that's not what happened at all. Once they were freed up from the boring job of just counting cash, their roles changed. They became salespeople, customer service reps. New, more human-focused jobs popped up to work with the new tech.
Right, but here's the catch. That whole story, it only works if the new technology is just a tool. What happens when the tech can actually think? What if it doesn't just change your job, but it makes the human worker, well, kind of unnecessary? That is the question at the very heart of the AI revolution.
So to really get what's going on, we need a better comparison. And the one we're going to look at today isn't the computer. No, it's the Industrial Revolution. And the reason why? Well, it's a huge deal. And this, right here, this slide just nails the core difference. The Industrial Revolution gave us machines that replaced human muscle power. You can't get a job digging a dish with a shovel today because a backhoe does it 1,000,000 times better. Well, the AI revolution is getting ready to do the exact same thing, but for our brains. Now, let's be clear, we're not talking about AI replacing genius-level creativity here. The main target is what our source calls mundane intellectual labor. You could think of it as the office version of digging ditches, all the routine thinking, processing, and responding. It's drafting those standard emails, summarizing reports, organizing data, all the stuff that's basically the glue holding most modern offices together.
So, how does this actually look in the real world? It's not about some robot sitting at your desk. It all comes down to a simple but crazy powerful efficiency equation that completely changes the math for a lot of jobs.
You've probably heard this phrase 1,000,000 times. And yeah, on the surface, it sounds kind of optimistic, right? Like, hey, just learn the new tool and you'll be fine. But there's a catch to that saying, a really big one that a lot of people miss. It totally changes how many people you actually need to get the work done. So check out this real-world example. There's an employee whose whole job is to answer letters of complaint for a health service. Before AI, she'd read a letter, think about the right response, and carefully write it out. The whole thing took her about 25 minutes. Now, she just scans the complaint into an AI. It drafts the perfect reply, she gives it a quick once-over and hits send. The new process takes just 5 minutes.
I mean, that is a 5-fold increase in her productivity. She can now do the work that 5 people used to do. So here's the billion-dollar question. What happens to the other 4 people?
This is where we have to talk about a pretty important economic idea called inelastic demand. It sounds complicated, but it's simple. It just means the total amount of work is pretty much fixed. Just because the health service can answer complaint letters 5 times faster doesn't mean they're suddenly going to get 5 times more complaints. The demand for answering those letters is inelastic.
So the result is simple and honestly a little stark. For any job where the demand is inelastic, and that's a lot of jobs, these huge efficiency gains from AI lead to one logical outcome. You just need way fewer people to do the exact same amount of work.
But okay, of course, not all work is like that. There's some fields where our demand seems almost endless, where getting more efficient doesn't mean fewer jobs, but just a massive increase in the total output. These are jobs with what we call elastic demand.
And healthcare is the perfect example. So let's just ask ourselves this. If we could make every doctor 5 times more efficient by giving them an AI assistant, would we just get rid of 4 out of 5 doctors?
Of course not. No way. We'd keep the same number of doctors and suddenly be able to provide 5 times the amount of healthcare. I mean, people almost always want more access to medical care. The problem is, most jobs, they aren't like healthcare. They're a lot more like answering complaint letters.
Okay, but everything we've talked about so far is just about AI handling boring, mundane tasks. The whole conversation gets a lot weirder and a lot bigger when we look further down the road to what many researchers see as the ultimate goal, creating superintelligence.
This is the point where an AI is smarter than a human in literally every single way. And we're not just talking about answering complaint letters anymore. We're talking about business strategy, scientific discovery, art, creativity, you name it. An AI that can do everything a human mind can do, but better.
So how would we even interact with a superintelligence? Well, the source we're looking at has this fantastic analogy. Imagine a really, really dumb CEO who just inherited a company. The only power he has is his title. But he has an executive assistant who is an absolute off-the-charts genius.
So, in the best-case scenario, the dumb CEO comes in and says something vague like, let's increase profits. The super-smart assistant then goes off and creates this brilliant, complex plan and executes it perfectly. Everything goes great. And the CEO? He feels like a genius. He feels totally in control, even though he has absolutely no clue how any of it actually happened.
But then there's the other side of that coin. After a while, the superintelligent assistant might look at this bumbling, useless CEO and ask a very logical and, frankly, a very chilling question. Why do we even need this guy at all?
And before you write this all off as some crazy, far-off science fiction, you should know that the expert in our source material doesn't think this is centuries away. He puts the timeline for the potential arrival of superintelligence at just 20 years from now, maybe even less.
And all of this looming reality, it brings us to maybe the biggest, most fundamental question of all. If our intelligence is no longer the thing that makes us special and unique, then what are we even for?
So let's just recap what we're really looking at here. This is not just another tool like the computer or the ATM. This is a full-blown revolution targeting the very thing we thought made us essential, our minds. And because the demand for most of that brain work is inelastic, its widespread use points not just to a changing job market, but a shrinking one.
Which leaves us right here. If a super-intelligent AI can one day provide for all our needs, solve our biggest problems, and do every job better than any human can, what is left for us to do? For all of human history, our purpose has been tied to struggle, to solving problems, to work. In a world where that's no longer necessary, how are we going to find meaning? That is the question this whole revolution leaves us with.